Welcome to Falmouth University's first Springboard Studios podcast. This week we'll be exploring the impact the project has on the student experience, and I'm delighted to be, and I'm going to let Hannah introduce herself. Hannah is the newly appointed Falmouth University president. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you very much.
And also present is Phil. Phil Green is the University of Exeter and Falmouth University, because this is a campus that's cohabited with two universities, who is the Deputy President. So thank you both for being here today. For the benefit of our listeners, I'm just going to give a brief bit of context to the project. So the project is funded by the European Social Fund, and it's supporting students in their creative careers after university. We're looking at developing their sense of self-belief, improving student wellbeing, and particularly their professional confidence. And we do that through encouraging students to participate in a programme of curated, non-assessed creative activities. We explore the impact that place-based learning can have here in Cornwall, and particularly exploring the impact that being in or near water can have on our creative practices and our wellbeing. And finally, we embed the 5 steps to wellbeing in our project. Just to explore those briefly a little bit more, there's a great book by Professor Wallace-Nichols that explores the physiological impact that being in or near water, whether that's an urban or rural space, can have on our well-being. It develops a mindset that's creative, connected, curious, collaborative and calm. There's further evidence that place-based learning in places and responding to their geography, their people, their culture, can develop 2 things that we found: agency in our students and social capital, that connectedness both internally and externally. And the other thing that we do, and it's a really interesting thing, is that we embed the 5 steps to well-being in our project. So that's giving, being active, noticing the world around us, learning new things and connecting to others. So Hannah participated in a project, part of Springboard Studios, which was called Blew Your Mind. As I said, it builds on the work by Professor Wallace-Nichols that looks at how being in or near water is good for our mental health and well-being, but also the importance of place-based learning and the impact that can have on agency in developing social capital. And what I did was I reached out to academics across the university, academics that had an interest in blue space or place-based learning, and we curated a programme of walks and talks in coastal locations across Cornwall, and each of those academics invited an artist to be part of that walk where place was absolutely embedded in their practice. So we walked and talked Tates and Ives, we went to Morn and Port with Tony Plant, to Botalic with artist Mickey Smith, to Grebe Beach with Dr. Joe Henley. So I was enabling, if you like, students to access some of these important blue spaces across Cornwall. And Phil has been a regular participant in our creative writing programme with the amazing human being Kelly Stevens. And the first year was kind of a more general exploration of kind of different creative writing practices before it kind of led in the final year to using creative writing as a means to explore the landscape and what it means to us, the landscape around us, the changes in the seasons, and more importantly, how we might use writing as a form of positive and gentle activism to do something about the ecological climate crisis. But enough from me. Let's hear from Hannah and Phil in terms of their experiences. So, welcome again. My first question to you is, why do you think the project's important?
Phil, do you want to take that away, or do you want me to go first?
You can go for it.
You go for it.
Okay.
Be my guest, please.
Okay. So Springboard Studios really was important for me, I think, because I did it in my 2nd and my 3rd year. So I came back, so that means it's good. But it's really important because I think even though the university is meant to be creative and collaborative, there's kind of not these spaces where people can come together and meet people who aren't on their courses and just be creative. And Springboard Studios really managed to do that. And there was a couple of different options. When I did it, I did both of the creative writing ones, and I studied photography. So having that opportunity to explore a different method of being creative really helped me, and it helped me explore different areas of myself, but also nature and Falmouth itself. My first year was completely online because of COVID, so I didn't get to experience the campus, but being able to come to the Wood Lane campus in Falmouth, that was special because I spent all my time up on Tremo, and when you come to Falmouth you'll realise that Wood Lane's a lot nicer.
Much nicer.
So just being able to explore the different places and have a reason to go there every week, that was really important. I'm really into nature. A lot of people who come to Falmouth are, but even though I studied photography, I didn't get to explore all of the parts of nature that you want to. You kind of go down this one track of your project, but having that weekly space to just play and be creative was really great. And working with Kelly Stevens, she's so inspirational and just allowed everyone to play with their minds and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the project was really important for that reason.
And how about you, Hannah?
Yeah, well, for me, I think nature is really important to me, and I do love nature. But a big part of Springboard for me, I think, was giving me the opportunity to meet people. And I think in Cornwall especially, there are so many creatives living down here, professional creatives that are so willing to share what they've learned throughout their lives. And I think Springboard was such a good way to meet those people that have lived in Cornwall all of this time, developing their careers and everything, and just having a chat with them. So I think a big part of Springboard for me was going along and being able to actually meet those people with people, like Phil said, that aren't necessarily on your course, and be in a really neutral environment where you've got the lovely coast to your left or your right, you're walking down a path, and you're just having a chat. You're having a chat with people that you've never met before, that are in different courses, but also to the people that have this vast amount of experience and picking apart their knowledge on basically anything. No, I don't think there were any questions that were stupid. Just a lot of interest and curiosity from everyone involved. And so I think, yeah, a big part of Springboard for me is the opportunities that it creates to meet people and really manifest. I don't know, it was just birthed loads of collaborative opportunities. I think there were so many people that I personally had never met before that have opened windows of opportunity for me to go on and work with them in the future on various different projects. So yeah.
Great, thanks very much. We're sincerely hoping that we're going to roll the project out in next academic term. To potential students that might be listening to this podcast, why would you say to them to get involved? How did you get involved and why? I mean, you might have touched upon this, but if you were going to recommend this, how would you articulate that to a potential participant?
Yeah, I would say, I think I got involved because I think it was you, Sasha, wasn't it? Coming into graphic design, and your attitude was so energetic and sprightly. I thought, God, she's definitely passionate about this. There must be something good going on with it. And I think a lot of my cohort were going. So a lot of people from my course did actually attend the Blew Your Mind part of Springboard. And but because my course, I think there was 100 odd people on it, it still was people that I wouldn't talk to every day. And so, yeah, I have you to thank for coming in that day with all your energy. So, yeah, look out for Sasha coming to your courses, hopefully, to launch the next part.
And how about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I guess there's two main reasons. The first one, like I say, my whole first year was online, so I was never on campus. I never met anyone off my course. And when we started back in my second year in Falmouth, I found it really daunting to make friends. So the people you normally make friends with are people on your course, but there was like 100 people, and I felt this pressure to be like good at photography in order to make friends with them. So having my work be my value meant that I find it quite scary to chat to people on my course. But then with Springboard, it kind of offered this place where you didn't have to be really amazing at nature photography to make friends. You could just kind of go and chat to people and like write silly poems and stuff like that. And it was this real confidence boost for me. And I really, really value it. The other one, in my third year, I did Springboard again, and that was focused on creative writing in relation to the climate and ecological crisis. And that's something that I work on a lot in my spare time, so with activism and stuff like that. But it also meant that I was using the creative writing in my final project for my course. So I ended up, even though I studied nature photography, my final project was about community poetry. So I ran poetry sessions inspired by Kelly's Springboard sessions and made a book. So that, that creative exploration that came from Springboard got me a first in the end. So what can I say? Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
Well
you.
done. I didn't know that. Phil, you've touched upon this in various responses, but feel free to chip in. But what sort of impact has the project had on your own creative practice? So potentially, Hannah, for you in terms of your graphic design practice, or because I know you have a much broader creative practice, particularly interesting in craft and stuff like that. So what sort of impact has it had on your own creative practice, as it were?
Yeah, well, for me, I actually did, in third year of graphics, we're able to actually choose our own projects ourselves. And I think I was fascinated by, basically, who doesn't have a fear of failure? Let's be honest. Everyone is terrified of, like you were just saying, terrified of being good at something and trying something and being successful. It's terrifying. All through school, I had that impending fear of, oh my God, if I actually do this thing and it's terrible, I'm a loser. I'm terrible. How am I going to make it in any creative area at all? And so I was really fascinated by this idea of unassessed creativity. And I started looking into that more. And one of my projects actually in my final year was centered around a whole body of work that was meant with thinking nothing about how it might be graded, what I could get from this project, and I literally just explored anything I wanted at any time, and it basically provided me a backdrop of, amongst all the other projects that I was really taking seriously and thinking about, okay, am I hitting everywhere I should be hitting, which it kind of bled into them almost. I think it really allowed me to have be calm about my entire experience in third year, because I was aware of, like, wait, I actually should be working on me and my own exploration, not thinking about how this work's going to be graded. Because at the end of the day, you've got 3 years of university to explore yourself, and you should not be adapting your own work to an assessment criteria. You should be exploring what you want to explore. And I think Springboard really reminded me that that is the direction you need to go.
Great, thanks. Phil, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think the creative writing aspect of Springboard helped me explore the emotional side of the climate and ecological crisis. So in my first year, I made a lot of work just like, taking nice photos of nature and stuff like that. But then by exploring my own feelings through the creative writing sessions, I ended up making work about like ecological grief. So like I made a project about ash dieback, which is where ash trees, they have this horrible disease and there's no cure. And I just felt so terrible about how that was happening, and exploring that through poetry and creative writing, I ended up finding my own path on the way to climate activism, because you have to go through those bad feelings in order to find the path to your purpose. And I think using that writing instead of just the imagery and photography that I was making already helped me through that process.
Great, thanks. So to a potential student that's listening to this podcast who might think, oh, is this for me? How might you kind of summarise the benefits, the highlights or the takeaways for you having participated in the project?
Do you want to go?
Okay. Yeah, meeting new people and making friends. We did a few trips around Falmouth. So we went on a walk to Gilly Beach, but we did psychogeography during it. So we were interacting with the landscape in creative ways. That was a real highlight for me. And yeah, just being able to explore different aspects of creativity that you might not in your specific course. I think that's the three main ones for me.
And how about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? You get outside, you get a free bus, you get to meet people you wouldn't have met otherwise. I think if anyone's got even the slightest shred of adventure in them and wants to tap into that, I don't see why you'd hesitate, to be honest.
Great, thanks. So, Hannah, you mentioned that part of Springboard Studios involved me inviting an academic to host an artist to walk, talk, create and debate and experience parts of Cornwall that you might not be able to. Phil, you touched on the benefits of a psychographic walk around Falmouth and how it encouraged you to explore places in completely different ways with other people. Hannah, might you just talk briefly about some of those blue space walks that I took you on?
Yeah, definitely. I think one definitely stands out. It was the walk with Mickey Smith. and I think a big lot of us went, didn't they? It was really good, and I think him. I mean, I don't know if he prepared things to talk about, but it was really like relaxed. We sat down amongst some ruins, and Mickey just told him about. And Mickey's part of the Ben Howard band for people that don't know. I'm a little bit of a fan of Ben Howard myself, and it was good to talk a bit to him about his journey. And then on the walk back, we all sort of like ran ahead so we could have a little chat with him a little bit more, and he was so open and so nice. And then this summer I actually work at Boardmasters every year, and he was playing. So when everyone was cheering for each member, went crazy for Mickey Smith. Mickey's got my vote. It was a really good experience, and I think such a good opportunity to. I mean, everyone talks about networking, and I think that word is so daunting. But at the end of the day, if you're going into a creative subject, meeting some of these people might set the course for the rest of your life. So really, really good opportunity.
Hannah, I was delighted to see that you used Springboard Studios as part of your presidency manifesto. Might you kind of elaborate a little bit on that and the process and what is important and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of my, like Phil was saying, a lot of our university experience was during COVID. And towards the end of the year, I think so many people were feeling frustrated by the lack of opportunities we were given. And Springboard, alongside Wednesday Open workshops, which gave students an opportunity to go into any facility, book on and learn a skill in an area in which their actual, what's the word for it?
Outside of your normal
outside
practice?
of your course, just something that you wouldn't, like me, for example, a graphic design student going to a robotics class and learning how to code and solder. These two things that I think were really important to my experience of getting the most out of what I felt, wasn't worth the money that you put into being at university. And these were two things that really made me feel like, oh, do you know what? This has been worthwhile. And I know Springboard wasn't sure if it was going to continue. And so I chose to focus my manifesto on making sure that things and activities that are bringing people together and connecting them to their environment is at the forefront. It should be at the forefront of everybody's mind, including the university, because it's what makes a community, and being in an education system like university worthwhile. It's what people connect to. It's what people remember. You don't want to spend 3 years at university just doing nothing and leaving feeling like that was a waste of time. You want to have these connections and do things that, you're proud of and look back and think, wow, that was good. And Springboard is one of those things that allows that to happen, I think.
Great. And how about you, Phil?
Yeah, so I was voted in as vice president on a manifesto that centres around the climate and ecological crisis. And I think a lot of people see that as a scientific crisis, but it's actually a social one. So what I learned through Springboard was that our emotions and how we feel about nature and what's happening to the planet are so, so important. So over the last year or so, alongside my friends at the uni, I've been staging some instances of like activism, protest, stuff like that. But throughout that, we've never let go of that creative edge. So, for example, we staged an occupation to demand that the university takes more solid action on the climate. And we got a meeting with the Vice-Chancellor, with upper management because of that. And at the start of that meeting, Seb, who's my friend who came on all the Springboard Studio courses with me, he read a poem that he'd written in one of the sessions. And it was just so, so powerful because we are a creative institution at Falmouth. And creativity is entwined in every aspect of everything we do. So throughout activism, we need to engage with that creativity and that community. So there's this higher education at the minute, it's moving towards this market kind of environment. Universities are becoming businesses, but that's not what I want. I want to see universities as places of learning, places of connection between people, and places where staff and students can come together in spaces and just talk and just have these interactions that can change your life. Or it's just having a cup of tea with someone, but all of it, that is the essence of human life, is coming together and being together in spaces where you can connect. So that's what I want to see over my year in the Students' Union.
And I think what Phil just said about not only are you meeting those creatives in Cornwall, on the Blue Your Mind side of Springboard Studios, but also your tutors. Having that connection with your tutors outside of your studio or wherever you work is so nice. Really puts the foundations down for opportunities to grow, I think, and yeah, shout out to Steve and Dion.
Shout out to Steve and Dion, indeed. And I love your point, Phil, about I think, to quote David Buckland from Cape Farewell, there's something that the arts have in terms of their power to humanise the climate crisis, not by data, but by expressing it in maybe more human ways. Well, thank you both so much for being with me this afternoon on this wet and sunny Friday afternoon just before the bank holiday weekend. So that was the first podcast as part of the Springboard Studios project. In the next episode, we'll be talking to Dr. Joe Henley about the impact that blue spaces can have on our creativity, our learning and our well-being.
Thank you very much.
Sweet, thank you.
Thank you both. This podcast has been part funded by the European Social Fund.